All right. Welcome to the Manly Man's Tour of Manly Manliness, where I am committed to helping you be a better, more authentic man of God and helping you improve spiritually, physically, relationally, emotionally, and financially. My name is Kevin Marzi. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. It is now September 17th. It's been about a week since Charlie Kirk's assassination, and I want to give my take on it. I know that I'm a new podcast. As a matter of fact, I believe I am going to launch September 19th. So this podcast will just come out by the end of the week. I want to give my take on the assassination on Charlie Kirk, but I want to do it from the perspective of a man versus a male. And there's a lot going on. You know, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. You had that poor Ukrainian refugee who was killed senselessly on the train in Charlotte. It's a crazy world right now. But I want to specifically focus on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I want to look at it from the frame of male versus man. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's kind of weird, but we live in a world where you can ask someone what makes a man, and they won't be able to give you a good answer. And I just think that that is absolutely craziness. So let me give you my definition of what a male is. A male is born with a penis and testicles, and they have XY chromosomes. That is it. Just the way God intended it to be. Okay? That's what a male is. Now, a man is a completely different thing, different definitions. So a man is a male, for sure. It fits that description. However, he works, and this is going to be no surprise, on being the best he can be spiritually, physically, relationally, emotionally, and financially. He understands that he is a provider and that he is a protector. He operates with courage. Now, courage is not the lack of fear. Courage is doing what needs to be done despite being afraid. Not only for himself and his family, but also for others around him. He has convictions, and he doesn't back down from them. If he's a Christian, then he is an authentic man of God. And seeing that this is a predominantly Christian podcast, we're going to take it from the Christian perspective. However, if you are not a Christian, you still will get a lot out of this podcast, okay? The Bible is his final authority. He obeys quickly and seeks forgiveness when he sins even quicker. He understands that his life is not about him, but it's about Christ, and that he lives his life for a generation that he may never see. Legacy is extremely important to a man. Okay? Male, man. So, let's talk first about Tyler Robinson. Tyler Robinson, he is a male. Definitely not a man. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of things that are going to come out about him and about different things and, you know, his sexuality and that. I don't care about that. I don't care. Okay? This is what I know. He was a coward. He was not a protector. His convictions were evil. His actions were evil. It was all about him. He didn't care about Charlie. He didn't care about his wife, Erica. He didn't care about their kids. He had no self-control. None. And he let his emotions get the best of him. Now, why am I concerned about Tyler Robinson? Why am I even bringing up his name? Because there are so many Tylers out there. So many. No sense of right and wrong. No source of truth other than their own. Cowards. Afraid to confront you in the light, waiting in the shadows to lash out, choosing violence instead of civil conversation. There are a lot of them out there. Why am I also concerned about Tyler Robinson? Ooh, boy, this is going to ruffle some feathers. This is going to ruffle some feathers. Because there are so many Tylers out there. Not the kind that they're just gonna go and kill someone, but something just as evil. They sit around and they do nothing. They are the critic in Teddy Roosevelt's famous speech, The Man in the Arena, and they operate in an apathy. They're not intentional about working on themselves spiritually, physically, relationally, emotionally, and financially. This one's going to hurt. They are the majority of Christian males in America. Yep. We go to church. We go to small groups. Heck, we may even lead a Bible study. But what do we do in private? Do we work on the best version of ourselves that God created us to be so that we can be useful to others? Look, we can't lead others until we're able to lead ourselves. So let me ask you a couple questions. Do we refuse to divorce our wives? Even when it's bad? Even when everything inside of us is screaming, I need to get out of this situation? I'm not talking about adultery. I'm not even talking about abuse. I'm just talking about, you know what? I'm just not happy. There's no sexual intimacy. There's no attraction. Do we fight to save our marriage? Do we fight for our kids? That's a man. Do we take the Bible and believe it from the index to maps and everything in between? That is our source of truth. And no matter what, that is what we're going to live by. That's a man. Or do we look at the Bible and then we pick and choose what we believe in? Yeah, I like that. But this whole no sex outside of marriage thing, that's not my truth. Male. Do we give in to our lust at every moment? Male. All right? Those are just a couple of examples. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that we don't have momentary lapses. Okay? That is not what I'm saying. When you mess up, do you run to Christ for forgiveness? Man. And seek to make it right. Repent. Turn away from the situation and go towards Christ. Or do you make excuses? Male. The truth of the matter is that there's always going to be a battle between our man versus male nature. There's always going to be that battle. There's always going to be that battle of, I know I should do the right thing, but I really want to do this. But you know what? I choose the right thing. There's always going to be that battle. Who wins the majority of the time? That is what defines you. Okay. Let's talk about Charlie Kirk. Charlie was a man in every sense of the word. Look, you might not have agreed with his religious views. You might not have agreed with his political views. However, he was unapologetic in his love for Christ and country. You cannot deny that. He believed in a vision larger than himself. Look, I don't know him personally. I do know one person who does. And they said that, you know what? He's the same on camera as he is in private. Devout husband, father, and Christian. Look, the fruit of his life was him talking to people who, you know what, most people wouldn't have conversations with, and trying to get them to see that they were being deceived. That's the hardest thing to do for somebody who's being deceived because they don't know it. In a loving and empathetic way. He was willing to speak to anyone. He deeply cared for people. Now, was he perfect? No. No, he wasn't perfect. Who's perfect? I'm not perfect. I'll tell you what, if you think I'm perfect, then you don't know me. No, he wasn't perfect. Does that matter? No, it shouldn't matter, because absolutely nobody is. The fact of the matter is, Jesus says that you will know the real ones by their fruit. And Charlie had amazing fruit. Charlie operated with extreme courage. Extreme courage. He focused on legacy, was resolute in his convictions, and I would argue, was an authentic man of God. So in this situation, you have two individuals. Same situation. One willing to die for his convictions, the other a coward hiding in the shadows to take a shining light in the darkness. One representing what true, authentic, godly masculine looks like, something worth modeling, quite frankly, something worth dying for. The other representing the moral decay in our society, a stark warning that every man has to heed that we have a choice between being a man or a male, and we need to choose wisely, sometimes on a moment-by-moment basis. Make no mistake, there is no middle ground. There's no gray area. You are either the critic or the man in the arena. You were either the protector or complicit in not protecting. You were either leaving a legacy or you were leaving corruption and destruction. As for the Manly Man's Tour of Manly Manliness, I strive to help men be authentic man of God, not perfect, but always moving towards and forward towards that prize that await those who are surrendered to Christ. I don't want perfect people. The men in my life are beautifully flawed, authentic men who love God, who are not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but they're real. And I know that their actions are in line with their words. They're congruent. Charlie was congruent with his actions and his words. And he was assassinated for it. It is now time for us to take a stand. And I'm not talking about taking a stand and taking arms. What I'm talking about is really looking at ourselves and saying, am I the man of God that I need to be? Am I praying the way that I need to be praying? Because this is not a physical battle. This is not flesh and blood. This is spiritual. This is demonic. The enemy doesn't care about us going crazy and rioting in the streets and doing all that crazy stuff. You know what he cares about? if men of God would take their positions of power and authority and would pray and would use that power and authority for good. That's what the enemy is afraid of. And that's why Charlie was silenced. I want to end with this passage from The Man in the Arena, a speech from Teddy Roosevelt. With this in mind, no one remembers the critic. In a few years, no one will even remember Tyler Robinson's name. And I doubt it will even take that long. Charlie Kirk's legacy will live for all time. As I read this to you, put yourself in it. How do you want to be remembered? As the critic or the one who dared to get in the arena? It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without errors and shortcomings, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.